It's a great pleasure to be here to talk at the inaugural ITEC conference, and quite humbling to follow such a pioneer as Graham Smith, who was producing robots that look somewhat like the robot I'm about to talk about in 1986. And I've only been working on this for 12 months. So there you go. I don't know if you're still there, Graham, but yeah, thank you for your inspiration. Right, now we're going to attempt a connection to the robot, one of the robots at the National Museum very shortly. I'm just going to do a very short introduction, and then I'm going to have to just get out of this presentation and do a little login procedure, which you may or may not see, but it might be of some interest to you as practitioners of the digital arts. So as Naomi said, I'm the project manager for the Mobile Telepresence for Museums Initiative, or Museum Robot. CSIRO has been the organisation that has invented the technology, or at least the software that is involved in driving this robot. And it was funded by the Department of Broadband, Communications and the Digital Economy, and intended to provide some background to see what could be done with, if we blue sky dream about what we could do with unlimited or somewhat limited bandwidth. So the Museum Robot Initiative aims to provide expanded online education and, importantly, complementing the new Australian curriculum, which is a very important thing for all of us content providers, to provide greater digital engagement in regional Australia, because this obviously will be of interest to people in metropolitan areas, but of great need to people in regional Australia, and to provide greater access to the resources of our national and state-based cultural institutions, and to get some of our content and programs outside of the silos of our buildings. And to do this through high-speed broadband, which is the only thing that's going to allow real-time two-way video communication. And through an immersive interactive environment, and by using engaging museum educators and curators. And that's important because there is a definite need for a human element in a project like this. It is not just about technology. The key drivers of this for the museum and other partners are the Australian curriculum and the NBN. And I will just say, this is an RNet newsletter from last year where I did a presentation on the robot about three weeks after I started in the position, and at that time there was a cartoon, there was a printed implementation plan, and a contract and a press release, and that was about it. So I was sort of speaking through my hat. So this is my opportunity to provide some actual to fill in what has happened over the last 12 months. And in fact, at least 3 or 4 months after the QuestNet conference last year, we were still on a trolley with milk crates, cable ties, laptop, and a pole with a screen stuck on it. And we've come a long way since then. Okay, so now I'm going to just try and log into our virtual tour with our guide, Stephen Barker, who's one of the learning service officers at the museum. So we'll get rid of that, we'll call up Safari, and hopefully we can log in. Okay, now this is of interest because this is how a teacher or a group of students will log into the robot, or does log into the robot. You get a ticket number in an email, a code, which I've just entered. The tour is running. You click here, you have to go through a network test to sort all sorts of things out. Make sure you've got flash settings correct. Make sure you can see your webcam image, which we can. Make sure we've got sound. Yes, it's on. Make sure we've got sound, and we can change the levels if we need to. The level is okay. We should now see and hear a video.
Great news, everyone.
Great news,
Good
everyone.
news, everyone.
We can.
Good
Okay,
news,
we're through the
everyone.
network
Good news,
test.
everyone. Good news, everyone.
We can now click here to continue, and then click here to start your tour. Allow flash. Now Steve Barker will be down in the gallery. This is our virtual waiting room. So when you dial in before the tour actually starts, we can have a look around the main hall of the National Museum. We can find some items to kill some time until the robot tour starts, and we can have a look at some slideshows of close-up images of the things. We can even, in fact, go and have a look at a little video of me. Welcome to the National Museum. Welcoming you to the National Museum. There's enough of me in this project, so I won't put you through that. Now, hopefully, Steve will now see that we are in this panorama and will connect to the tour. I am not communicating with him in any other way except that he should see on his robot display that we are dialed in. And so at some stage, he's at the robot, he's going to hit Start Tour, and we will come out of this. Now, this virtual waiting room is a really good spot because what it does, it gives you as a presenter the time to allow multiple people from multiple sites across the country or multiple students who are each having different problems connecting to come in over a period of time, and the ones who get in first not to be bored and to have something productive to do, to actually have a look at some content. And also, not just look at some content, but to actually explore the way that you use the interface. Now you can see that I've got my mouse here, and it's just like a Google Street View, which is a stored version. Well, this is a stored version too, this particular hall. You just click down with your mouse and then drag the panorama around. And in my case, I've never done it with a trackpad. Ah, there we go. Okay, with 2 fingers on my trackpad, I can zoom in and out on objects and have a look at them. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to Keynote and we'll pop back and see whether Steve is there in a few minutes. Okay. So getting a little bit technical, one of the things that I think would be useful here, because there's several people in this room who've seen 1 or possibly 2 presentations of mine and have heard the basic information about this, is to give you a bit of the back-end stuff to this, because this is the sort of technology that we hope will be rolled out to other institutions and that will be used by people in schools who actually want to know how does this actually work. So we've got a commercial robot base. Down the bottom of the robot, we've got a computer built in there. It's a Mac Mini operating at about 98% of capacity. There's a touchscreen interface. There's an HD webcam, which is focused on the presenter, and there's a panoramic camera on the top. So the user gets 2 images. They get the guide, the human element, and they get the panorama of which they have control over. This goes through some video streaming servers in racks down in the basement, and also a content database, which is where we put all of our content so it's accessible to the public. And then through a broadband internet connection, whether that's NBN, ARNet, or some other, preferably fibre sort of connection. I did a connection yesterday to a digital hub that had ADSL2, and they did have some issues. And some of the interactive elements didn't work because the broadband, even though it was broadband, was not good enough for this application. At the school end, essentially, you need a PC with a webcam and a mic, and a browser, Safari, Internet Explorer, Chrome, something like that. And that is all they need, plus their broadband connection. All right, we're going to get out of this and see whether Steve is there. Safari, he's not there. I'm wondering if someone should give him a call, or maybe I could give him a call.
Rob, it's probably worth mentioning that this extraordinary, amazing, sophisticated technology that you're telling us about, we can't actually ring Steve down in the gallery because there's no phone connection.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's very funny because at the robot cupboard where we store the robots, there is no internet. There's no mobile coverage. However, about 4 metres and through a sliding door into the courtyard, there is. So every time you try and do some problem solving with CSIRO, you've got to step out, have a chat to them, and then they always ask you what's on the screen, and you go, I can't remember. And you have to hang up, go back in, have a look, go back out and ring them. Anyway, there you go. Phones are even more flaky than robots. So let's go back to our presentation. I do have a video, so at some stage we'll show the video. Okay, now the back end of the robot is that the robot has plotted the museum gallery by us wheeling it around. It shoots lasers out and they bounce off all the surfaces and it builds up a picture of the gallery. It also has this wonderful obstacle avoidance technology so that as it whizzes around the gallery, if it comes up to some visitors, it will slow down and then it will come to really slow down and then it will go around the visitors. Now this is very important obviously for anyone in a public institution with their public liability insurance obligations. This is actually the video that was captured of us driving the robot around and mapping the landmarks gallery when we first got the robot. So the little red dot is the robot. We're wheeling it around. You can see as it goes around, the lasers are building up a picture of all the surfaces that it can see in there. So this is not a GPS-based system or anything like that. The robot actually has generated a map of the environment in which it's working. And that's amazing because then we can plot a spot and it will go back to that spot every time that we need it to within an accuracy of 2-3 centimetres, something like that, which is actually vitally important because you're associating some digital content with objects and you want the content to be actually about the Melbourne Cup to be right around the Melbourne Cup. We'll just whiz back out from... No, I won't. I just... I don't know. Yeah, he's still there. All right. There's a back-end booking system. Now, I actually showed you this. I didn't realise I'd be doing that on screen. So you log in with a ticket, you do a webcam, you get the video, and then you join the tour. You get into the foyer, which we're in, and there is content and a video. So you've seen all that.
We're still trying, Rob. We're still trying.
Okay.
7 numbers.
All he's got to do is click Start Tour. So there is a content management system. We have got a curator who worked for about 3 months with us to pull out content, photos, videos, and other information relevant to the gallery that we're in, and then go into the content management system and link it to the actual items. And he is now working sort of part-time on that as well. So as the year goes on, we're going to be getting more and more rich content in there, which is going to make this a very rich learning experience for students. Now, in the panorama, every single student or member of the public who has dialed into the robot tour can actually look at their own thing. So we can have 16 different computers or 16 interactive whiteboards dialed in, and each one can be looking at different things, clicking on different content. So they're essentially controlling their own experience, which gives the student or students that sense of control and self-discovery. Or if they're in front of an interactive whiteboard and doing this as a class activity, it's moderated by the teacher with input from the students who are around. That element of control is, I think, very important with technology. It's quite immersive. The panoramic video view is obviously quite immersive. If a student is sitting with headsets on for communication with the guide and they're looking at the screen right in front of them, then yeah, they are sort of really in there in an immersive experience. If you're sitting and watching a screen as you are, it is not quite as immersive, obviously. But we also have the opportunity to put in soundscapes so that as you bring your camera over a particular item, you will hear a sound effect that we've put in that makes it a little bit more like a visceral experience. And we've had a little bit of discussion with our new partners, ARNet, about using the Geodome, which some of you may be aware of. Geodome there. And running this panorama through their projection system. Now that would make it a truly immersive experience. That may be a year down the track, but it's certainly something that would be really quite phenomenal and not seen anywhere else. I'm going to have to show you the things that you would have seen on the tour if we don't get back to it. On the left there, you see what we see as a user, a panoramic view. Get my mouse back here. Where's my cursor? No, I'm not going to get a cursor. You can see the students who are asking a question in the top left corner up there. This is Angela Casey, our education manager at the National Museum, who's been doing most of the tours while I was doing all the sort of back-end technical work, and we've tag-teamed. One of the reasons we may be having a problem with Steve is that he's never done a robot tour. Why have we got Steve doing this? Because the entire education team is here in this room. So we had to quickly train Steve up, and so that may have caused some of these problems. On the right-hand side there, you'll see what Steve will be seeing, which is the people who are dialed in this case, quite a few people. He would just be seeing us. And several people with their hands up, because you can digitally put your hand up to ask a question. Once a user puts their hand up, Steve with his finger presses on their icon. They know it's Josh Machin. Josh will come up in the screen, and everyone who's part of the tour will hear and see Josh's question and the interaction with the guide. And it can become quite a little town hall meeting. Down the left, there's a variety of buttons for some interactive elements, polling questions. We can ask multiple choice questions. We can ask yes, no, and true, false questions. And we've got various other features in there. I'll just whiz through. Here's an example. The map on the left there of the east coast of Australia is a map of the connections that we did when we launched the robot at the end of March this year. We had a school in Townsville who were all clustered around an interactive whiteboard, getting a group experience. We had a CSIRO team dialed in from Brisbane to provide support. We had a group of students at Kiama Digital Hub dialed in at individual computers. We had the museum, obviously, and we had an external curator with some special interest knowledge dialing in from the Melbourne Museum. So it was quite an example of the sort of multiple points that you can put together with this robot. Yep.
Sorry, Rob, just interrupting. They are at the other end trying to dial in.
They are.
So it's shooting. So we'll just keep.
Let's just pop back to Safari for a minute. Yeah. Okay. So there is obviously some issue going on there. Okay, it's all right, we have a video, if we've got time to play it.
Kasparov or Chester that they're trying to use?
Could be either.
Those bloody Russians.
Yeah. You can see, yes, you can see Kasparov there, the white robot. We had a national naming competition, and a student came up with Kasparov, which worked very nicely because the white robot does look a little bit like Casper the Ghost, so we can shorten Kasparov to Casper. The other one is Chester. This shows you some of the sort of permutations you can use with this technology. You have your educator in the museum with the robot out through the NBN to points across Australia. You can have a couple of students sitting at individual PCs in Wollonga, South Australia, a class of students in Townsville, 4 students in Smithton. You could have that expert dialing in from another museum or from wherever, a university maybe, and some students at a digital hub. I'm using students, but these could be just members of the general public as well, not just members of the general public. Digital hubs, fantastic. For those of us engaged in digital engagement, the rollout of the Digital Hub program is of great benefit, and I'm telling you, most of my business is coming from very, very keen and engaged librarians around the country, and they have deep fingers into their communities. They know all the clubs and societies. They know all the linkages, and they've got NBN run into there, and they've got multiple PCs, they've got tablets, computers, laptops, great wireless. They've got everything. So if you want to, get your message out somehow, get onto the DBCDE website and have a look at the digital hubs and find some, because those librarians are fantastic. I think we might just pull the pin on that, and what we'll do is we'll just have a look at a video. Now, this video was produced by the Department of Broadband and Communications. It features far more of me than I am comfortable with, and it was very early morning. I had not had coffee, so I apologise for anything. But this gives you a very good idea of the way teachers and students receive these sort of programs.
Okay, we're at the Gungahlin Digital Hub and we're about to take a tour of the National Museum of Australia. If you could open your laptops, we'll get started. Today the students are taking a virtual tour of the National Museum of Australia with the CSIRO Virtual Museum Robot.
Hello and welcome to the National Museum of Australia. Museum Robot here is a telepresence platform that allows remote visitors from all over Australia to dial into the museum and get a virtual tour of the museum's exhibits and be able to see the exhibits in the gallery in a panoramic sense and be able to access all sorts of extra information. The robot knows exactly where it is at any one time to within about 1 or 2 centimetres, and we can send the robot to anywhere in the gallery that the visitors want to see. We're now here at Farlap's Heart. It's a little bit gruesome.
You can look around the entire room, the immediate area that the robot's in, by moving the camera around.
The museum robot's main piece of technology is the panoramic camera, which is on the top.
You can rotate your own camera, so you can look at whatever you like, and if there's something that you're interested in looking at, you can click on it and get more information that way.
And in various ways they demonstrated. But in addition, we've got a second camera here, which is always trained on the guide from the museum, who can talk directly to the people in towns across Australia.
So high-speed broadband is critical in its application because the 360-degree field of view camera has a lot of data in it. It's a video camera, and there's a huge amount of data needs to be streamed live to each student.
There's all sorts of interactive features that are built into this as well. They can click on certain objects that they can see in the camera and they'll get extra information.
Which can be letters, diaries, photos and all sorts of other information.
You can look at other stuff around where the robot is and click on it. It comes with a little slideshow where you could read the exhibit panels. It's like actually being there.
They can also interact with the guide by asking him questions, and the guide can ask them questions to respond as well.
I see we have a question from Jaden. Hi Jaden, how you going?
I'm good. I just wanted to know who the people behind you were.
That's a great question. We've got 2 giant puppets here. We can make sure that we're satisfying their curiosities, meeting their learning needs, and engaging them in a face-to-face way.
The tour was really informative. It's almost like you're actually there.
High-speed broadband will enable students who live in regional and rural areas access to information and to places that they may not be able to have accessed before.
I think students from all over Australia, not just those in Canberra, would have a really great time with this because they might not be able to come down and visit the museum, but with this virtual tour, it gives them the opportunity to practically go there and experience a lot.
At the moment, we're in the pilot stage of this project, so we're connecting with the existing NBN rollout sites.
Being a teacher with 15 years experience, I can say that this new technology will revolutionise the way we take students out on field trips, and in fact it will change the whole concept really of an excursion.
My favourite part was probably Farlap's Heart. He explained a lot about the different stages of Farlap's life.
Here's a multiple choice question for all of you on the tour.
They can ask you questions, so it could be a multiple choice question or a yes or no question.
And most of them are right. You've come through with the correct answer, which is 300 grams.
Before we had high-speed broadband, we just couldn't dream of these sorts of projects.
Well, we've come to the end of our virtual tour of the Landmarks Gallery of the National Museum of Australia. I hope you keep in contact.
We can now see there's a whole new raft of applications that we can start to think about.
And I hope you're going to go away and do a little bit of research on...
And some of them we just even don't know what they are yet, and we're sure we'll find out very soon.
And we'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Well, I'm glad I had that. All right, I've just got a couple of minutes and just so that we can allow a little bit of time for some questions. Just a couple of potential uses for this sort of technology. Obviously to schools and students, through the schools or through libraries. Various community groups through digital hubs and other broadband linked community centres. We find that there's great potential for engaging our own curators with our marketplace. So we've had a curator come in and actually talk to a tour and give some very technical information and engage with the general public, bringing our hosts who normally deal with people face to face to the a digital audience. It allows us to collaborate with other cultural institutions. We could have 14, 15 other cultural institutions all dial in at the same time. We could have a little, some sort of seminar sharing experience like this. Allows us to build some new audiences, maybe in aged care, University of the Third Age, local history groups, tertiary teacher training. And of course, there's stakeholder engagements for us as a national museum. So partnering up with institutions, providing extra services for people who've donated things for exhibits, and engaging with Indigenous communities who have items within our collection and allowing them to access the collection of objects that are of significance and to them. And just very quickly, a couple of the challenges. I wrote down the bottom there just before, during lunchtime, the UTS suggestion. I'm not sure if it was Rachel. Someone made an observation about firewalls and bandwidth issues. They are driving me crazy. And Aaron said, these have been holding back immersive experiences for 2 decades. Well, I can totally understand that. Firewalls, proxy servers, white lists, these things, particularly in the public sector, where there's sort of removed control or semi-control of systems, are just driving me crazy. But one by one, we're sort of getting into the schools that had those issues. A little bit of feedback can sometimes be a problem. You can't have 16 computers all coming in from one school unless they've got a gigabit connection. 100 megabytes is not enough for this. So when I originally made this presentation last year, I was thinking you could have 16 computers come in from one school, but that's a lot of bandwidth. That time will come, but it's not right now. And its very flexibility makes it a very difficult concept to sell. So I have conversations of hours with individuals to try and get this across, and finally having a video that explains it is fantastic. So there we go.
Before questions, I just wanted to say you're certainly in a sympathetic audience here. All of us working in technology and education, we would all have had a live demo that had a glitch at the last minute, despite the fact that I know Robert was here hours early and set it all up.
3 times I tested that. Apparently it was a streaming server problem.
But what a true professional he is, that it was still such an excellent and comprehensive talk, and we really do have a clear picture of what you're doing at the National Museum of Australia.
Thanks,
So
Dan.
any questions for Robert?
Thanks, Joe.
That was amazing. I'm just wondering, how do your education presenters feel about speaking to the robot, and with the curators also doing talks like that, how do they feel connecting to students in a new way?
Actually, a great deal of excitement. I've only worked with one of the actual visitor services hosts so far, and he had no experience. He came on a tour with me. I did the introduction, and then I handed in the headset, and he just took off. They're natural storytellers, visitor services hosts. They love their stories and they love engaging with the public, and he had absolutely no problem. And now a lot of the other hosts are, keenly looking for that opportunity to do that. Curators are more generally, I won't completely stereotype them, but generally more reserved group of people. But the curator who did jump on had no practice and very little warning. It just so happened I was doing a tour and I was meant to stop at this particular spot, but the curators were pulling things out of that cabinet and putting new ones in. So it was a great opportunity to hand him the headset and explain what he was doing, and coped extremely well. So yeah, and Steve, this would have been his first connection, and you would have seen a very polished performance from a great storyteller. So yeah, it seems to be something that we can all jump into. Good question.
Congratulations, you guys. You've come a long way in 12 months. I'm a bit
Thanks,
I like the new skin from last year.
Yes.
I'm a bit disappointed we didn't doppelgang it with a latex version of yourself. I thought that was on the plan.
You want even more of this?
Yeah, well, two's good enough. When can I make a booking on a Friday evening from home and do a tour with you? And what sort of bandwidth do I need?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. Technically, the bandwidth requirement for a single connection would be about 12 to 15 megabits per second. So 10 megabits for you to receive the panoramic vision and the other interactive elements, and 2 to 5 for us to receive your webcam and voice and responses and that sort of thing. When will it be available to a general member of the public? That's a bit hard to say. That is an aspirational thing. I think we would be looking to do that at some stage, particularly for special things like particular events or perhaps after hours access. But at this stage, I think we really have to look at getting maximum involvement, and I think that does involve going to groups, community or education, and education is obviously a very key driver for the National Museum and other cultural institutions. So if you ask me to project, I would say that there'll probably be some opportunities to trial that sort of thing within 12 months, but for something that's generally accessible, I would think you're at least 2 years down the track. Guessing.
We could all go to Dave's house.
He's obviously got good broadband.
NBN's only on the eastern side.
Okay. All right, I've had the wind up. Thank you very much.